Hey, what's up you beautiful feckers? How you all doing? So, it's 2019, a new year, a new cycle in development for Warframe, but what exactly does the Warframe player base want to see made or brought to the game this year? It's the burning question, right? And it is a question that the Steve recently asked on Twitter. What would you guys like him to dedicate his time to this year? What do the developers need to focus on? So they want to spend that time working on what you want added to the game. Now last year, more time in development was spent on quality of life changes to certain items in game than previously. Reworks to weapons and warframes, of course, except Vauban, you can't call that a rework. He still sucks. Alright, Retalius. Now, they also worked on the Sacrifice quest, the Chimera prologue, the Elite Onslaught's arbitration missions, Kuva survival, new frames like Korra, Revenant, Baruch, Umbral Excalibur, and of course, although I don't know if you'd call him new as such, but the mechanic where he fights alongside you kind of is, Garuda, as well as the new login reward system, and of course, the introduction of Fortuna towards the end of the year and everything that came with it, like weapons, MOAs, orb fights, and so on. So they dropped a lot of content last year, but the big issue with a lot of that was that this content was quickly dropped or quickly completed, and we were left twirling our thumbs while waiting for the next item to drop in game. So not a lot of that content that they released last year had any kind of sustainability added to it, which is why the whole issue of the supposed content drought came around. Now, after Steve asked this question, Rebecca then combined all of the answers to his question into a list to show the kind of top items that we wanted to see added into the game, and top of that list, unsurprisingly, was the word content, which is a word that covers a very large spectrum of the game content for someone to be content. This could be bi-monthly weapons like way back in the old days, or it could be larger content like the returning of raids, dungeon style missions, new frames, and so on, or it could just be some form of actual sustained content, something that doesn't die out after a week when we have farmed everything from it, something that we can dig our teeth into and rinse and repeat in order to aim towards better rewards at the end of it. Now, you would need to define what you mean as content when talking to the developers, because like I said, it does cover a very large spectrum. When it comes to content, it would be really nice for them to stop putting all of their eggs into one basket for the end of the year update, the big one that they roll out in November every year, like they did for the last 2 years with Plains of Eidolon and with Fortuna. And it would be nice if they give us more intermittent content drops throughout the year, because right now a lot of the content that we get, especially at the end of the year, we burn through inside 2 weeks. And well, veterans do anyway. I guess if you're new, you're not going to, but a veteran will burn through it in 2 weeks, and then you're left having to wait maybe 3 or 4 months for the next update, which in reality is a killer for any game. You know, the player base will definitely fragment and drift away and play different games because you've nothing to keep them around. Now for me, what I would not call actual content being dropped into the game, because there was multiple versions or multiple updates last year that only had deluxe skins or Tennogen skins. I wouldn't define Tennogen as actual content, or even the deluxe skins as well, and I would probably go one further and say that the primes or the unvaultings are not content drops either, because these are real money items that can be bought, so they're kind of used as a way to support the developers more than anything else, or to skip the grind in order to get some of those prime parts. Now, I'm sure there will be plenty of you who do class Tennogen or do class some of these deluxe skins or the primes as actual content, but for me they're just simply not. Now, the next word on that list was the word story, which I'm going to assume people mean the actual adding of lore into Warframe, more lore, because Warframe's lore is kind of like a jigsaw where there's pieces of it all over the place that you need to put together yourself, or you could just go and watch Stallard, watch his videos, and then you'll catch up on all of the lore. But the lore for me in Warframe is kind of, but not really, like Dark Souls, where the lore is in the game but you need to seek it out and put it together. Or if you're playing Dark Souls, you could just watch Vatividia instead, because his videos are fucking awesome. So for me, the story in Warframe is more about the lore and learning more about the game, its settings, its surroundings, and so on. So that's something that the player base wants to see more of in 2019. 2018. If you're one of those, then let me know in the comment section below. The next word on the list was simply system. Again, I'm going to have to guess here, but I'm guessing that system means it's about the Tau system and adding it into the game, where we will eventually, hopefully, go on to fight the sentients and maybe get Mama Lotus back, or kill her if we get that option. Definitely gonna kill her. Or maybe it's about removing some of the nodes from the systems we have right now. I vaguely remember the developers saying something a very long time ago that they wanted to reduce the amount of mission nodes in game, but I can't remember off the top of my head if they mentioned why they hadn't gone about doing that. Maybe someone in the chat or in the comment section can clarify that for me. So what exactly would come with a new system? Well, we don't know. New environments, new enemy types, new faction to fight against. Unlike now, where sentients only spawn in certain missions, we would have a constant stream of them to fight against, where there would be different sentient types for us to kill and fight. But the word system was mentioned, and like you guys, I would definitely love to go to the Tau system and fight against the sentients. It would be awesome to have some kind of a huge fucking running battle against them. Now next up, the word on the list was the dreaded phrase Endgame. This could literally be any type of new game mode. One player's endgame is not the same as another's. Some players love the fashion in Warframe. I don't see it as endgame. Other people like collecting all of the things, collecting nearly everything that they possibly can, which again isn't my kind of idea of an endgame, but I do believe the game needs something, like I said already more than once, sustainable content. Last year, I do feel like they tried to add endgame into the game because there was a little bit of an uproar about endgame content, but I don't think it really worked. Onslaught feels a little bit off, with no real point to running them. I mean, a little bit of lore behind some of these game modes would have been nice, but they were kind of just thrown in and left and not really touched upon after that, which is the same that happens to a lot of things that get added into Warframe. They get added, we play them for a while, and then the developers never really go back to them to kind of, I guess, add bits on or make them more playable. Arbitration missions, it feels the exact same as well. Arbitration kind of forces players to run with certain tanky frames if you're running solo, because if you don't, you die, you lose the mission, you're out. But with the outcry in the community at the time, like I said, I do think that the developers listened, which is something a lot of developers don't do. They responded and they tried to add an end game, but again, I don't think it works. Now, I actually went through a phase of making multiple videos on this subject a little over a year ago, where I criticised Warframe heavily and mentioned endgame a lot. And it got to the point where I got a lot of flack from my viewers, and I was basically asked to drop it and stop kind of going over the same topic over and over again, that it wasn't going to happen. But I was fixated on it and I became really negative. But at the end of the day, I figured out that I was also burnt out on Warframe. And when you're burnt out on Warframe, your videos, your titles, all of that tends to mirror your feelings when you're going through that phase of, I guess, burn out. So endgame for me would be just to repeat what I said in those previous videos without the addition of the burnout, and it would be a sustainable mission type with good rewards at the end of it, something to aim towards, rewards that don't have a real money price on top of them, rewards that you actually earned. And I guess to some degree you get a sense of accomplishment as well. Unique items, not skins, but actual items, whether it's weapons, whether it's armor sets or a Sayandana, something to show that you actually earned it. Not a sigil or an emblem. I want basically something a little bit better. Raids, dungeon style missions, challenging, rewarding content. That's kind of the area that a lot of players look towards when they mention endgame. Now, Destiny has its raids and its strikes, and they're very, very good. Warcraft has raids like this as well, and I know Warcraft and I guess Final Fantasy to some degree aren't really in Warframe's category, but games like The Division 2, which will be coming out in March, will have, I think, 8-man raids or 6-player raids, not to mention Anthem and what it's going to bring at the end of February as well. But I do think Warframe is going to have to up its game and get some kind of an end game for us to actually dig or sink our teeth into. Dungeons, raids, strikes, I mean, the type of dungeon crawling mission is successful in the vast majority of MMOs because players enjoy running them. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Imagine running through a corpus ship complete with elite units, mini bosses, and at the end of the run is the big boss that you need to kill, but it's not the simple boss that you can just one shot. It's a little bit harder. So like a dungeon crawling mission type where you progress through a ship or a planet and you fight through mini bosses, elite units, till you eventually fight against the big boss at the end. Now, I'm genuinely not sure whether this type of game mode would work with Warframe or not because of how powerful our Warframes are. I think that's why we have so many bosses in the game that have those invulnerability phases, because we are these super powered fucking space ninjas. But again, I think a very large amount of the Warframe player base will agree that there is some type of end game or sustained content needed to be added into the game for us to not go through these phases of content drought where you have completed everything and gathered everything, providing you're not a new player, because of course you're not going to feel that at all. Something that will basically keep us occupied. So this list that Rebecca compiled had a lot more than 5 words. There was about 10 to 12 in total, but I've decided to just stick to the top 5. Now the next word on this list was the word quests. None of the new Warframes we got this year had any quests attached to them. There was no lore behind it as well. The Warframes were just released and we were told, there you go, new Warframe, have fun. So you didn't really learn anything about it, but something the player base wants is definitely more minor and major quests released into the game as well. Now this ties in, I guess, with the word content and with the lore requests as well. But the only issue for me with maybe having more quests added into the game is that I would assume that they require a lot of time to make, with the CGI, with the voiceovers, and of course the story behind them as well. So will adding more quests into the game delay other content that might actually be replayable, whereas the quest you'll do it once and that'll be it, whereas they could release other content and you can replay it over and over again if it's worthwhile. So again, there's a lot of ifs in everything that I've said in this video, but that's the top 5 things that our community wants to see in Warframe for 2019. Let me know what you would like to see in the comment section below. Do me a huge favour and hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, or don't if you didn't. Subscribe for more Warframe, and as always, thanks very much for watching.